The movie begins by showing Janet, who in ancient times had been trapped in the quantum realm. There, she meets some unique monsters that certainly don't exist in our world. Fortunately, when Janet was overwhelmed by some of these monsters, someone suddenly appeared and immediately saved her. Then, the scene moves to the present, where we are shown Scott Lang, who has been very popular among the public since joining the Avengers. Even though he used to be an ex-convict, in fact Scott was able to prove to the world that he was actually a good person. Now, he lives his life blissfully with his new family, along with Hope Van Dyne. Hope continued his father's inspiration. She built a very famous company and she named it the Pim Van Dyne Foundation. One day, while Scott was attending an event, suddenly he got a call from the police. They reported that Scott's eldest daughter, Cassie, been arrested for having gotten into trouble by shrinking the police car. Because of this incident, Scott and Hope then bring Cassie to Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. There, after they eat together, Cassie starts showing off her new invention that she had secretly created with Hank. The invention is a device that can connect them to the quantum realm. So, if they want to explore there, they just have to send drones. Cassie believes that, because she often sends signals to that subatomic world. But suddenly, when Cassie just sent a signal to the quantum realm, Janet quickly turned off the device while saying that the quantum realm was a world far more dangerous than this world. Then, she asked Cassie to not activate the device again. However, while Janet was being asked for an explanation, and they were arguing with each other, suddenly the device turned on by itself again, and then this extraordinary thing happened. Everything in the room, get in the quantum realm without exception. Plus, they split into two groups because they fell in different places. Whatever happened, Janet suddenly told them to hide when a plane passed over them. Meanwhile, now Scott and Cassie are confused by everything in the quantum realm. They were even attacked by a creature that looked like a sun. Luckily, when they were panicked, another creature, an indigenous, suddenly appeared and immediately saved them both. But it turned out that the weird-speaking creature brought Scott and Cassie to its base. There, the two of them were forced by the indigenous to drink a red liquid. The drink is not a poison, but it is what allows them to understand all the languages in this realm and so they can communicate with each other. Scott was very surprised because one of the creatures, Quaz, can read Scott's mind just by glancing at him. After having a long enough conversation about why humans have 7 holes in their bodies, finally the leader of their group, Jentora, immediately asked Scott and Cassie to leave their place. She also said that in the quantum realm, there is someone who is called the Conqueror. And, the Conqueror likes to search for living creatures from other lives, like Scott and Cassie, who come from above. Jentora and the others were colonized from their own world by the Conqueror. Jentora didn't want to take the risk by letting Scott and Cassie stay in her base, because she was afraid that the Conqueror would approach her people. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Janet guides her family to find Scott and Cassie because the quantum realm is very dangerous. But not long after that, they were instead met with a group of creatures from the quantum realm whose shapes were odd. It was estimated there was an epic fight between Janet against them, but it turned out that the creature was Janet's friend in the past, when she was trapped there. Then, that's when Janet and her family finally got a ride to make it easier for them to find Scott and Cassie. Arriving at a place that can be said to be a bar in the quantum realm, Hank and Hope were also given a drink by Janet, which immediately made them able to understand what the living beings in the quantum realm were talking about. Janet came to that place because she wanted to meet her best friend while she was here, and that person was Lord Kryler. There, Janet turns to Kryler for help to locate Scott and Cassie, who she thought was lost in the quantum realm. Unfortunately, Kryler, who used to be Janet's only best friend and someone who dared to challenge the Conqueror, now Kryler is on the side of the Conqueror. He bowed to him when Janet returned to the Earth, just to get a position. Instead of helping Janet, Kryler instead reported Janet's arrival to the Conqueror and then ordered his people to arrest Janet's family. After successfully defeating half of Kryler's troops, they then decided to run away and look for Scott and Cassie's whereabouts. The scene then moves and again shows Scott and Jentora's troops, who are immediately attacked by the Conqueror's men. Initially, Scott only planned to escape to save his daughter. But Cassie's heart said otherwise when she saw Jentora's entourage overwhelmed by the Conqueror's troops. And, like it or not, Scott also joined in on the fight. Instantly, they were surprised by Darren's presence with a very different look. Darren's disappearance in the 2015 Ant-Man film made him enter the quantum realm. Darren's body was discovered by the Conqueror, who was later revived and given a name MODOK. On the ship, Janet started telling stories about who is the Conqueror. So, the Conqueror is someone who at the beginning of the film manages to save Janet, and his name is Kang. So, after Kang the Conqueror managed to save Janet from the previous monster, Janet returned the favor by saving him. Because at that time, Kang the Conqueror is dying after experiencing a crash incident. As time passed, as they were alone in the quantum realm, finally Janet together with Kang the Conqueror began to work together to revive Kang's ship. Kang the Conqueror had explained to Janet that his ship can explore any universe and anywhere. And if it is fixed, then the ship can take Janet wherever she wants. Because of that, they then try their best until in the end, their efforts were not in vain. Janet and Kang the Conqueror managed to create an energy core so that Kang's ship could turn back on. Unfortunately, by the time Janet touched the core of the ship, suddenly she was shown a shadow depicting Kang's evil behavior. So actually, Kang the Conqueror is someone who has overpowering power, but he uses that power to colonize, slaughter, and even destroy all the places he meets. Therefore, when Janet was about to be escorted by him to return to the Earth, Janet immediately discouraged her intention because she was afraid if Kang got out of the quantum realm, there would be a great calamity, which may have never happened on Earth before. As a result, because of this incident, Janet immediately used her costume to return to retrieve Kang's ship energy core, which they have fixed so far. Feeling that she will not succeed against Kang, Janet then takes out a blue chip to increase the size of the ship's energy core. Janet thought that after successfully destroying the energy core, then everything was done. But it turns out, Kang in the quantum realm actually created a very large and invincible empire, because his strength came from the costume he got when he occupied his ship. Back to Scott and Cassie, now they are prisoners in Kang's kingdom. There, Scott finally met face to face with Kang the Conqueror. He asks for help by asking Scott to return with the ship's energy core, and threatens that he will kill Cassie if Scott does not comply with his orders. As a father who is good and willing to sacrifice for his child, Scott immediately obeys the orders and will take the core energy. Scott's only job is to head to the energy core, then return it to its original form. But Scott had to hurry, because the longer he was in there, the worse it would go. After shrinking and managing to get into the energy core, Scott was confused by his body, which suddenly became several parts. There, Scott saw the possibilities of himself. Because, if it is near the core of the multiverse engine, there is a probability storm. So, every choice or move that Scott might make, it will be all here and plainly displayed before him. Scott's self-image began to riot because their thoughts were inconsistent. On the other hand, after traveling quite a long time, Janet and the others have now managed to arrive at the ship's energy core. There, Hope, who was aware of Scott's existence, immediately decided to participate in the energy core. Fortunately, when Scott was having a hard time because of the riots created by his illusionary shadows, he immediately realized that his daughter was in danger because she was taken as a prisoner by Kang the Conqueror. Scott is then motivated by this, and that thought can make the other shadows cheer him on and work together to help Scott take the core energy. When it felt like Scott wasn't going to make it, suddenly Hope came and immediately took Scott to work together to get the ship's energy core. Unfortunately, when they got back together and managed to get the energy core, Scott was still very worried about his daughter's condition and was reluctant to hand over the energy core to Janet. Until finally, it fell in front of them and immediately seized the energy core. Meanwhile, Hank, who was waiting for them on the ship, was surprised by Darren's presence, who immediately attacked him. Unfortunately, Kang was too powerful, and the combined strength by them was nothing to Kang the Conqueror. Kang managed to bring Janet to his kingdom, while Hank Pym was also defeated by MODOK. However, from above, we are shown the shadow of a sizable ant. On the other hand, Janet was brought by Kang to his empire. There, Kang asks about what Janet saw when she touched the energy core. Janet replied that she saw a monster acting like a god. However, Kang explains that he is only trying to kill himself, or a version of himself residing in another multiverse, which in the future could destroy the entire multiverse at any moment. However, according to Janet, it is tantamount to Kang having killed countless innocent humans throughout the other multiverses. But Kang persists, wanting to erase time. Outside, Hank meets Scott and Hope, who have just woken up from their fainting spells. There, Hank is not alone, but he is with his clever pet ants. It turns out that the ants entered the same quantum hole but came out at a different time, due to time dilation, which spanned thousands of years earlier. Until finally, they evolved and tried to contact Hank through the earpiece. Then at this time, Hank's ant civilization was very advanced. These ants developed and evolved so as to create civilizations for thousands of years. But where they were right now, what the ants had actually been through was only one day. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Cassie, who was being taken to prison, managed to escape and immediately saved Jintora. After successfully releasing Jintora from prison, they immediately summoned Jintora's troops who were outside Kang's headquarters. Jintora and her troops inside will now try their best to eradicate Kang's troops, while Cassie goes one-on-one and fights MODOK. On the other hand, we are again shown Kang the Conqueror starting to prepare his ship to leave the quantum realm. From the outside, Scott began to change his body into a giant as well as lead the native creatures in the action of attacking Kang's headquarters.
Let's go!
Meanwhile, Jintora finally can join with all her troops while inviting her troops to take their place back. They then started a war and fought Kang the Conqueror. After successfully defeating MODOK due to turning into a giant, Cassie advises MODOK to change into a better person, just like the Avengers. Meanwhile, realizing that Kang's ship is about to launch, Scott and Hope finally work together to thwart Kang's plan to escape. Kang the Conqueror is disgusted by the whole thing that Scott and the others have done. Finally, Kang the Conqueror stepped in and fought all of them there. Seeing that the indigenous creatures were unable to fight Kang's strength, now the superhero family immediately took action to fight Kang the Conqueror. While the three superhero powers were still overwhelmed against Kang the Conqueror, this time the old man appeared with his combat ants. He's Hank Pym. Thanks to the help of Hank's immensely powerful ant powers, and along with MODOK who sacrificed himself, finally Kang the Conqueror was defeated. MODOK who was dying, he said that at least he had changed into a better person. At that moment, Janet immediately informed all of them and told them that she had succeeded in creating a portal to return to Earth. After everyone made it back, except for Scott, Kang the Conqueror suddenly showed his face again, causing an unavoidable fight between the two of them. Luckily, when Scott was very cornered, Hope came at the right time and immediately helped Scott fight against Kang. In the end, Kang the Conqueror was certainly doomed. Then, they both returned to Earth. On Earth, now Scott is back to living a very normal and happy life with his superhero family. But Scott also still likes to think about Kang's words, that if he doesn't get out of there, his other self will mess up the multiverse. But he's trying to keep enjoying and not think too much about things that haven't happened yet. Then, in the credits scene, we are shown three of Kang's twins. They are Ramatut, Immortus, and the other one, we still not sure about it. But many rumors say, if the name is futuristic. If you know the name, feel free to share in the comments column, okay? But in essence, they were talking about Kang being punished and exiled. Kang the Conqueror who is in the quantum realm now, who is in a dying state. So it's not really certain that Kang, who was fought by Scott, is dead. In addition, now the three of them are also summoning all the Kangs from various multiverses, from various timelines to come to the gathering held by these three Kang leaders. Then, in the second credit scene, we are shown Loki with Mobius who seems to be monitoring Kang who is explaining about the time machine there. And, finally the movie is over.